Okay, thank you so much, Kishore. Yeah, talking about you wrote many books. Yeah, a number of books. I still remember.
That's true.
Yeah, the book you wrote more than 20 years ago, which impressed me and influenced me quite much. Can Asians think?
That's right.
Now
It's still in print.
Oh yes, right, yeah. So now you have a newly published book which should have caused huge reactions worldwide. Talking about has the Western lost it?
That's right.
So tell me, what did you do to make mind to write about this book?
Well, I think the main reason why I wrote the book now is that history has turned a major corner. Because what we are seeing is the end of 200 years of Western domination of world history. And this end is perfectly natural because from the year 1 to the year 1820 for 1800 are the last 2,000 years. The two largest economies of the world have always been those of China and India. So the last 200 years of Western domination has been a major historical aberration. Now all aberrations come to a natural end, so it's perfectly natural to see the return of China and India. But what is strange is that at precisely the moment when China and India decided to come back, the West decided to go to sleep. And so
Would you call it go to sleep, not decline?
They went to sleep because remember, at the end of the Cold War, the West became very arrogant, and they thought they had reached. They thought that they had reached the end of history. The very famous essay by Francis Fukuyama. So the end of Cold War, when they were so arrogant and complacent, and they went completely to sleep, is the moment when China and India decided to wake up. And so as a result of which they have fallen behind, and now of course, as you know, they're woken up with a shock, and they're saying, why have we fallen behind so much? So I'm trying to explain to them that the world has changed fundamentally, but the world is not anti-Western. So if the West stops trying to dominate the world, the rest of the world is willing to work with the West. And that's the big message of the book.
So let's talk about index logics which sitting behind either a rising or declining, either Western or Eastern. You know, in the last 500 to 300 years, when Western began to rising, there must be some index logics behind that, which is tech revolution, industrialization, maybe civil rights.
Yes.
Also after the end of the Second World War, they call it a liberal democratic order which supported the Western inclining as well. So what's the index logics behind, as you called, a sort of Eastern rising?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The West began rising because of some fundamental changes, in Western civilization. You had the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and all these made Western societies far more powerful. And initially the West used its power to dominate and to colonize the world. But over time, the West also shared the gifts of Western wisdom with the rest of the world. And in my book, Has the West Lost It?, I document how the West, by sharing what I call the art of reasoning with the rest of the world, that helped to wake up the rest of the world and has led to the dramatic return of the Asian societies. And with the dramatic return of the Asian societies, the West has now got to deal with a different world.
Yeah, but in terms of the index logics behind the rising of the eastern part of the world, so shall we still follow those logics which the Western used to follow in the last 300 to 500 years in terms of rule of law, liberal democratic order, which they are very, very much proud of? Or do we have something unique, specific, which we call the eastern part of spirit?
No, I think what's unique about Asian societies, especially Chinese society, is the culture of pragmatism. So, and pragmatism was best defined by Deng Xiaoping when he said, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or a cat is white, if he catches mice, it is a good cat. So, for example, if Western science and technology, Western medicine, for example, has improved the lives of billions of Asians through vaccinations and so on and so forth, we should use it because it has helped us. And if the concept of rule of law has helped Asian societies, we should use it because it has helped us. But there may be other aspects of Western society that may not necessarily work in Asian society, so we can adapt. But we should try and see, as Deng Xiaoping said, you feel your way across a stream by feeling the stones. And we should feel our way, try different things and see which ones work. We adopt them, which ones don't work, we don't adopt them.
So basically, your point is that the era for the Eastern to arise has already started.
Oh, definitely. I think just as the 19th century was the European century, because the great powers were all European, and the 20th century was the American century, because the United States of America dominated the century from the beginning to the end. The 21st century will be the Asian century.
Not Western?
Asian century. And even today, in purchasing power parity terms, already the number one economy is China, the number two economy is America, the number three economy is India, the number four economy is Japan. So today, already in 2019, 3 out of the 4 top economies in the world are Asian. So the center of gravity of the world has already shifted to Asia, and it's time for the West to adjust and adapt to this new world.
So if you say the era, for the East Asia, or for Asia to arising, that will be the fact which we are going to see for this century. So where do you place the position of the West? Are they next to us, or are they behind us, or are they under us?
No, I think, I hope, the goal of my writing the book, Has the West Lost It? I say that even though the West has been dominating the world, and has been dominating Asia for over 200 years, Asia doesn't want to dominate the West. In fact, Asia wants to be equal partners with the West. And so it's important, therefore, for the West to change its mindset. I give you a simple example, just a concrete example. When the IMF and the World Bank was set up in the 1940s, you had a rule that to become the head of the IMF, you must be European, and to become the head of the World Bank, you must be American. At that time, the American and European economies dominated the world. But this is no longer so. But we still have a rule that says to become the head of the IMF, you must be European. To become the head of the World Bank, you must be American. So this rule must go. And the West must learn to share power and must learn to allow the IMF and the World Bank to be run by Asians or Africans or Latin Americans. That's what I mean about the era of Western domination being over.
Well, talking about the change of the mindset of Western people, are all these changes on the way for the Western people?
Well, that's actually, I'm really glad you asked that question, because that's precisely what I try to do in my book, to try and persuade the West that they should not be frightened by what has happened in the world. They should be grateful and happy that Western science and technology, Western best practices have improved the world and made the world a much better place. And the rest of the world want to strengthen global multilateral institutions like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization. So the West should therefore embrace this moment, celebrate this moment, and work with Asia and not be frightened by it.
What have been so far the reaction from the Western side about your book?
Well, so far, I must say, I'm very happy that many Western countries have reacted positively to this book. So it's been translated into Portuguese, into Dutch, into French, with a very nice, enthusiastic foreword by the former French Foreign Minister Hubert Védrine. And it's been translated into Italian with a very positive foreword by the former Prime Minister of Italy, Enrico Letta. So the book has been well received.
Yeah, but one most important part is still missing, the American English.
Well,
what's the reaction from America?
As a result of this book being published, I was invited to give a TED Talk in April. And as you know, the TED Talks are viewed very widely, especially in the Western world. So when my TED Talk was released a week ago on Monday, in one day, the TED Talk got more than 500,000 views.
Wow.
In one day. So that's a very positive reaction. And a lot of the views came from North America. So I think even within America, there is a certain receptiveness to the message.
So what's the reaction from the authority? Yeah, from the American authority, including think tanks,
Well, I think
scholars,
if you talk of
policymakers.
American authorities, of course, the Trump administration is a very insular administration and still believes in an America first philosophy. And this is, in this world, America first will not work. In this world, only humanity first will work. And so certainly people in the Trump administration will not be happy with this book, but I think there are people outside the Trump administration who are reacting more positively.
Do you see any difference in this regard, how to perceive the Eastern rise? Some difference between European and American?
Oh, certainly. I think the Europeans are much more aware that the era of Western domination of world history is coming to an end. So I think the Europeans are adjusting pragmatically to this new world order. I think the United States is still finding it very difficult to adjust to a world where America is no longer number one. And in fact, in American society, if an American politician says it's time to prepare for America becoming number two, it's political suicide. So clearly, American society is not yet ready to deal with a world in which America will be number two.
So let's talk about soft power, which the American people or the Western has been very proud of. Soft power. So how do you define the soft power for the eastern part of the world when they began to arise?
Well, I think, as you know, soft power is a concept that was created by my friend Joseph Nye, the Harvard professor. And I think he was right. America had a lot of soft power because America was the most successful society on planet Earth. But when America goes from being one of the most successful societies to a relatively underperforming society, then American soft power goes down. I mean, to give you one simple example, the only modern developed society where the average income of the bottom 50%, 50% has gone down is America. So how can a society where the average income of the bottom 50% goes down claim to have a lot of soft power? So I think it's the success of societies that determines the soft power, and you cannot deny that the country that has done the best in eradicating massive poverty and improving the standard of living of its people is China. So there's a lot of interest in the rest of the world to learn about China. But the other advantage China has is that it has 3,000 to 4,000 years of history. And the rich history of China is something that is very attractive to the rest of the world. They want to learn about the rich history. And as China succeeds more, as more people visit China, you'll find that Chinese soft power will also begin to grow.
So maybe the last two very short questions. So the first is, how do you perceive or predict how the world is going to look like by, let's say, by 2050? 2050 will be very soon. Basically in 330.
Yeah. All I have to do is give you a prediction made by a major Western firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they said by 2050, the number one economy in the world will be China. Number two will be India, and number three will be America. So America, which has a psychological difficulty adjusting to being number two, may become number three.
Number three.
So I think that's why it's important for America to wake up and learn to adjust to a new world and not try to dominate it forever.
So, so the last question is talking about these very good-looking scenarios you described. So for China and India, what should we try to rethink about our strengths and weakness in order to make sure that what you described is really going to happen, and last but not least, is going to be sustainable in the long run?
Well, I think it's very important for China and India not to become complacent or arrogant. And I say this because unfortunately, after the 2008-2009 financial crisis, after watching both Europe and America struggle, some Chinese thought that China's moment had arrived and China could therefore relax and be complacent. And that was a big mistake on the part of these Chinese. I think it will still take for both China and India to achieve a fully developed society, to enjoy the same standard of living as, let's say, Switzerland, will still take another 50 to 100 years. So it is still a long journey ahead. The long march has just begun, and we should not feel complacent at all.
Yeah, you are just setting a wake-up call for the Western people. Say, hey, now it's time for you to wake up.
Yes.
Yeah, I still remember more than 40 years ago, Ezra Fogel wrote a book, Japan #1.
That's
and
right.
now you're writing Has West Lost? Thank you very much, Kishore. Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.